Welcome back to the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast where one of the hosts thinks the lyric is dashing through the snow. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. And I am joined on this festive week by a very festively dressed man. The podcast audience cannot see Ben Solak, but he's wearing not just a Santa hat, but a Santa hat that actually has Santa on the Santa hat, which feels a little bit redundant.
I spent a good $5 on this at TJ Maxx 30 minutes ago. All right. Respect the Santa hat. Mina came into the show and didn't even comment on it. I was like, the producer was like, oh, the hat, everything. Mina, no mention. I was like, oh, Mina just assumed, just par for the course, Ben was going to be wearing a dumb Christmas hat.
No, I wait for when that record button starts.
Absolutely.
You don't get any free banter. You're listening to this. It's Tuesday. You might be wondering, that's not Dominique Foxworth. They're not spending 30 minutes breaking down Packers Saints. If any podcast out there is breaking down Packers Saints, God bless you, because it's not this one.
The Malik Willis throw on the move. Jaden Reed, third down. Beautiful ball.
At some point, we should have a conversation about Malik Willis. Is it too early for me? I got dunked on a lot for liking Malik Willis in the draft. And you know what? If you sit on a take long enough and just wait.
I tweeted last night. Yeah. I was like, we got to give Malik Willis to Kevin O'Connell and just kind of see what happens. All right. Just put him, just for like a month. Kevin O'Connell, somebody said that he should do like limit testing for NFL quarterbacks. Just progressively get worse and worse early round busts and see what the absolute floor is for Kevin O'Connell quarterback resurrection.
Would you rather have Malik Willis instead of Kenny Pickett, who's been thrust into action?
I don't say the man's name on the podcast. I'm going to get upset on a holiday.
It might come up, actually, because for this show, we are, as I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time breaking down the game. We will talk about the Packers, however, because we're going to do something that no NFL podcast has ever done on Christmas, which is give gifts. Just kidding. People do this a lot to the playoff hopefuls, contenders. By gifts, I mean, we are going to each talk about sort of the one thing that needs to go right or maybe improve or, just something we've got our eye on for each of these teams as they head into this stretch. Ben, I thought of it though, like what is like, if this goes, the way I thought of it was, if this goes right, if this happens for this team, I'm going to feel a lot better about their chances to not only, obviously, most of these teams are in the playoffs, but to actually make a run once they get there.
I thought about myself write the post-game recaps after the conference championship games, and it's the Vikings who made it, and it's the Bills who made it, and the Ravens who made it, and the Lions who made it. And I'm when I'm writing this, I'm saying, of course it's Jared Goff, and of course it's Kevin O'Connell, and of course it's Lamar Jackson. But the one big thing that broke for this team was, and like that whatever finishes that sentence is what's under the tree for the team as we finish regular season and obviously move to the postseason.
All right, so we're going to go back and forth. I give myself the AFC a little bit of a cheat because I have 2 AFC games on Wednesday. So I've been thinking about those 4 teams quite a bit. You, the NFC, we'll alternate here. I'm going to start with the Super Bowl champion, the Kansas City Chiefs. And what I wrote is whatever tackle duo you trot out, whether it's still Joe Thuney, who's been playing left tackle, they might feel comfortable moving him back inside once DJ Humphries is healthy. You saw Juwan Taylor, but then you saw some Wanya Morris at right tackle last week, and it looked pretty damn good, and Chiefs fans were heartened by that. Whatever combination, it sticks and it works. And I'll say this, I mean, Thuney, I don't think maybe I feel like I kind of just brushed over that over the last few weeks. I haven't really acknowledged. Not only is it incredible to me, Ben, that a guy who's, one of the best left guards in the NFL over the last 7 years or so. I mean, he's been really good for a really long time. The fact that he just switched over to left tackle is already incredible. The fact that he did it against Myles Garrett, Danielle Hunter, and now on Christmas, it'll probably be a lot of Highsmith because Watt usually rushes from the opposite side. But the Highsmith is Alex Highsmith and the Steelers. That is a hell of a welcome to your new position slate of edge rushers. And he has acquitted himself pretty damn well.
Yeah. And the game against Garrett was like, okay, it wasn't the best game. He gave up his pressures. Like, he held his own, like obviously there was the moment where he got him in the face mask. But you're like, all right, like, Joe Thuney, first left tackle game, Myles Garrett, whatever. I thought it was gonna kind of always look like that. Like, all right, like he can do some good stuff for you, but he's gonna lose on the outside. He's not used to having that blank, nothing to his left. And then the Texans game, you watch back, you're like, wait a minute, that's that. Like, if you didn't know, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't be able to tell that was a guard moonlighting on the left side. So I thought that the second game was very impressive. I think in your ideal world, you still put him back and you put TJ Humphries at left tackle. I still think that's probably the best 5. I'll put it to you this way. I think no matter if it's Tooney or if it's Humphries on the left side, you're probably still calling plays. And Patrick Mahomes, you're probably still behaving very cognizant of, I'm going to have pressure off my left side. Andy Reid is still designing plays to protect the left side. Yeah. But if Tooney is at left tackle, then you also have to ask questions like, okay, what runs do we feel comfortable with? Right? We usually have Tooney left guard. Now I think it's Mike Caliendo, if memory serves. And so, okay, like now we have to change how we run the ball a little bit. You kind of create a secondary trickle-down problem. Whereas if you just leave Tooney at left guard, you play Humphries at left tackle, you're still dealing with the first issue. You're still going to have pass protection issues off the blind side, but the trickle-down problem isn't there. So to me, I think that's how they're going to play it. But we have to see if Humphries actually does come back healthy.
It's going to be interesting to see. To your point, they have been helping Tooney. They really helped him a lot in the Texans game. I'll be interested in seeing what approach they take against the Steelers again, because Watt usually rushes on the opposite side, and usually he gets the chip help, right, or whoever's playing him, pardon me, the right tackle. It is going to be an interesting decision moving forward, because I would argue, I should ask Mitch Schwartz what he thinks about this. With Patrick Mahomes, interior offensive line play arguably matters a great deal, right? Because he is so good at stepping up in messy pockets, and also that Chiefs run game between the tackles being efficient and that ability to grind out yards on those runs is really important. I don't know. I think it more so probably though than like a broader philosophical thing. It's going to come down to opponents and what they see out of Humphries. But anyways, that is the one thing I think. The Chiefs offense appears to be kind of rounding into form a little bit, and Hollywood Brown coming back is big. We could talk about that another day. But I think if they can get solid tackle, it doesn't have to be great, just solid tackle play, it's going to be hard for me to doubt this offense moving forward. Yes, okay.
The thermal of Christmas presents, right? Like the flannel, right? It's not your favorite Christmas present, but just it's a solid, it plays well. That's what you need.
I think Chiefs fans would be happy to take that.
Yeah.
Okay, who would you like to do first for the NFC?
I'll do the Eagles. I kind of did it I did NFC East, West, North. I did the usual order. I don't know. The Philadelphia Eagles, under the tree, obviously, like I think the big obvious one, I didn't previously have healthy Jalen Hurts who gets through the concussion protocol. That's going to be a big deal for this team. You never know with a concussion if it is a 1 week thing, a 2 week thing, a 3 week thing, kind of how that goes. So obviously, Jalen Hurts health notwithstanding, under the tree for the Eagles, I've put early leads. I put first half leads. That's what they need as we go through this postseason process. We have seen the Eagles trail in the first half twice this year. All right, multiple score deficits. It was the Ravens, right? They trailed 9-0 at the end of the first quarter. Oh no, they got it to 9-7 very fast. And then it was that Bucs game in week 4 where they had no AJ Brown, they had no Devontae Smith, they were super banged up, and they lost the game handily. In this large winning streak, and then even in this game against the Commanders, Kenny Pickett is in, and there's so much going on, and there's turnovers. They still are on a positive, if not a neutral script, right? Where they are able to run the football. Saquon Barkley can be the second half engine of this team. One of the big outstanding questions for the Eagles, no matter who they play in the postseason, home, away, get a bye, not a bye, before any of the Commanders loss happened and the Hurts injury happened, the big outstanding question was, what happens if somebody gets the drop on this team? What happens if the Minnesota Vikings come out and it's immediate, opening touchdown drive, Kevin O'Connell on the script, just cooking. And then Brian Flores, all of a sudden, big play, fumble. It's not even anybody's fault. It's not even a bad play. Just, they get a lucky bounce. Then bang, it's 14-0. Certainly in the first quarter, you're still like, all right, we run the football. We do our offense. But we haven't seen this Eagles team dig their way out of a lead. And they're so run heavy that for their playoff run for Christmas, they need first half leads.
Yeah. And if they have a first half lead, it's going to be very hard for me to pick against them. Again, assuming Jalen Hurts is, of course, healthy. I came out of this last game, Ben, kind of, I would say 90% of me was willing to just write it off for Philadelphia. Obviously, Hurts' injury hung over a lot of it. But so many of the things that happened in the game were just uncharacteristic. Devontae Smith dropping the football, weird special teams issues that gave the Commanders good field position, busted coverages, 12 men on the field, CJ Gardner, Johnson losing his mind. Okay, that might happen again. But I didn't come out of it feeling different about the Eagles. The only thing that made me nervous, and this is not really, this is actually, I think, pretty Hurts specific. I was surprised by the inability to run the ball when Hurts left the game, because sort of the feeling this season is, wow, this is an unstoppable rushing machine if they have a lead. And the Commanders they played a lot of single high in the second half, but they weren't selling out completely to stop the run, and they still couldn't run the ball. And I guess my overarching takeaway from that, and again, this is probably not going to be a problem because Jalen Hurts is going to be back. The run game still does depend a lot on Hurts changing the numbers. And I think that was my big, if I came out of this with any concerns about the Eagles, I was like, ooh, this run game actually still depends on having a quarterback who's a credible rushing threat.
It goes a lot back to the under center conversation when Kellen Moore first became the OC, right? It was, they're going to go under center more. And it's like, well, like, sure, okay, under center play action, everybody likes that. But if you have a mobile quarterback, you can do something that a lot of other teams can't do, which is be a gun run team. And you can option team and you do the motion stuff. And now you can pull guys and like you have that mesh point that creates some conflict. You can leave a player unblocked. The math is categorically different when you're on a mobile quarterback gun running team than when all of a sudden it's Kenny Pickett back there and you have to, in order to run the football, I would argue, go under center, which I mean, the Eagles, I think, were not equipped to just deploy in the middle of the game. And I think the lesson that you learn as Kellen Moore is to be a little bit more cognizant of that. In the event that Jalen goes down again, how can we get to our under center running game? Jeff Stoutland, more cognizant of that. But the lesson also probably is for Howie Roseman, who, went and did a classic Howie Roseman thing. Let's go buy a cheap first rounder. Jahan Dotson trade, Kenny Pickett trade. Oh, the first round of the other team was like, let's go get him. Let's go see if there's something to develop here. All right, but Jalen is so integral to the design of the offense in terms of that running game that it might be worth really emphasizing having that mobile QB2 so you don't have to change your stripes in the event he goes down.
Yeah, I was kind of joking about obviously the Malik Willis thing, but it would be nice to have him back there next to Saquon Barkley. Nice. Okay, I'll go Ravens next for the AFC. I was going to do something defensive, even though the defense has been much better, obviously, since they made the change to Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington at safety.
Which, by the way, never wrong just early. Ardarius Washington preseason draft takes coming in incredible 4 years down the road.
Ardarius Washington laying that hit on Russell Wilson to force the fumble in the Steelers game. I did not see that one coming. But
if there are any photographers like sports photographers who listen to the pod, I'm looking for a good photo of Ardarius Washington next to Kyle Hamilton. There's one that's like decent, but it's a little bit off angle. You can't tell.
5'9".
Ardarius Washington is 5'9". He has a 70-inch wingspan. Kyle Hamilton is 6'4". He has an 80-inch wingspan. It is the funniest safety duo I've ever seen in my life. I need a good level photo of the two of them side by side. I have a tweet in mind.
And Hamilton can play deep. He can play the post, which is part of what makes that work so well. I mean, he's just an absolute freak. But also, like, quietly, Marlon Humphrey, just thinking about, because we didn't get to talk about those games. He's definitely going to get an all-pro vote for me.
Yeah.
Should be, just kind of having I wouldn't say a slept-on season. Everyone knows how good he is. But, like, I think what people maybe haven't apprehended is the season he's having. It's not a bounce back, but like, holy crap, he's been unbelievable this year.
And
like,
it is a little bit like it felt like Marlon was approaching the late 20s, corner age cliff, where it's like, all right, like the quickness goes, and it's just such a hard position. Yeah. And it probably was just the case that he was more banged up than you realize, and you don't really get to know these things from the outside. Yeah. And then he's healthier in a final year. So yeah, I had 100% written Marlon Humphrey, like not off, but like, okay, corner 2, and he'll get got sometimes. Like he's still like, where Darius Slay is right now in his career. Like, all right, this is kind of who he's going to be. No, like this, it's been a big recovery season for Humphrey in that regard.
So I ended up not doing defense, and I was like, well, maybe I could give them like Nate Wiggins, continued linear improvement because he's been good, and that's important. I'm going to go something a lot simpler here, which is Justin Tucker being fixed. Yeah. So Justin Tucker obviously has had a very down season by his standards. And on last Saturday, he nailed a 51-yard field goal, which was a huge slight. The last time that the Ravens played the Steelers before last week, they lost in part because Justin Tucker missed a bunch of field goals. He's been missing 40-yard field goals this year, 50 yards, just like an adventure. So he made it, which was a huge moment for Ravens fans, I imagine. But also, Ben, it was the way he made it that struck me, which is he kicked it down the center. Yeah. And that is different from what we have seen this year because he has been hooking those kicks. And I don't know enough about kicking to know about technique and strength. And I'm sure he's given very informative interviews on this subject. I'm just going to keep it simple. Mike Present to the Ravens is more of that. Justin Tucker doesn't have to be Brandon Aubrey this year. He just has to be reliable in like that 45 to 52 range for me to feel a lot better about this team.
There was a wonderful piece by Alex Katzen for SB Nation where he spoke to some college special teams coaches about Tucker and kind of the kick process and everything. I thought was really cool because, right, we all are like, all right, hopefully Tucker gets fixed. How? Listen, I got a lot of data. I've watched a lot of film. Kicking. I don't kick it harder, kick it better, kick it more. And the worst thing is all the announcers use golf metaphors. And I also don't golf. And so like, oh, he pushed it to the slice with a hook. And I'm like, it missed. It missed to the left or the right. That's all I have for you. So yeah, the Tucker kicking 50-yard field goals, right? Great, excellent. Like obviously a very good gift. But then the big thing for me is it's the peace of mind in terms of game management, right? Yeah. It's the way, like, it's not just putting the 3 points on the board that he would have otherwise missed. Trusting Tucker changes the way you call plays on third down on the 42. And like it cannot be overstated how big of a deal that is for your decision making and for how you manage the clock, especially when you start playing Mahomes on the other sideline, Allen on the other sideline, and you're really trying to count possessions and think about how you want to finish that second half. If you can trust your kicker, it eliminates one process of the decision making tree that can be really, really volatile. And so yeah, a healthy Tucker is a good gift.
All right, NFC. Who's next?
All right, for the Detroit Lions, I think, again, there's like a super obvious one. Like, let's give them a health pack, right? Let's give them a Pokemon Center underneath the tree so we can go. We can heal. Alex Anzalone's is hopefully back for the playoffs. They're hoping to return Carlton Davis at some point in the playoffs if he's able to come back from the broken jaw, right? There's David Montgomery is going to maybe be able to play on the MCL. Like, there's just so much up in the air for key players for them that might be able to contribute to the playoff push. So there's the big health question. I will say, though, a really nice, Christmas gift, like an early Christmas gift, maybe they got it in a white elephant or something. I don't know. A Packers win over the Vikings in week 17 would be a lovely gift for the Lions.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Because, absolutely, now with Detroit and the Vikings tied in the NFC number 1 seed race, let alone in the NFC North race, this upcoming week 17 is really important. Detroit plays at San Francisco on Monday night. Green Bay plays at Minnesota on Sunday. And so in the event that Green Bay beats Minnesota, Detroit can, I'm 98% sure, sometimes I get these wrong, usually I get them right, that they will have the NFC North in hand with a win. And so if you get a Packers win in Minnesota, which is very, very possible, that line is a 1-point line, man. Those are two very, very good teams. Then you have the opportunity to say, okay, beat a reeling Niners team in San Francisco, which, by the way, we kind of forgot about this because of how good Detroit been and how bad San Francisco's been. I promise you, Lions have had this game circled. The Cowboys game from last year and then this game from last year, the way they embarrassed themselves in this stadium in the NFC Championship game, I promise you they're going to be hot. Win that game against the 49ers, and you secure yourself the number 1 seed. I don't think they would necessarily rest starters. That doesn't feel particularly Dan Campbell-ish to me, but they could, rest a couple of key guys, not rush back the injured guys, play them for a half. It gives you a little bit of latitude. So I think a Packers win be very nice for the Lions under the tree.
Gun to your head. Packers, Lions, Vikings.
Don't do this. It's so hard.
I don't know how I would.
Hard.
I asked that because I was thinking about it last night. I'm not gonna lie. I turned off the game at halftime, but
I watched the whole thing. I had Emmanuel Wilson bets. Won them all, baby.
I don't know how I would rank these teams. Before all the Lions defensive injuries, I had them pretty comfortably, not comfortably number 1, but they were number 1. But God,
I will tell you my honest heart of heart opinion. You just have to promise that nobody will listen to it, nobody will record it, and they won't throw it back at me.
Packers won.
I think the Vikings are the best of 3 teams as they currently stand. I think that Minnesota is so unbelievably well coached that they're going to match
They're
up.
all well coached, though. That's the crazy thing about these 3 teams. Not only are they 3 awesome teams, they all have phenomenal coaching staffs.
I would argue that Jeff Hafley and Aaron Glenn, the latter of whom I love dearly, are a little bit more willing to just bang their head kind of into the trio. This is what we do on defense. This is the way we approach things. Whereas Flores, the first half of the season, what was everything we talked about? Oh, Flores is blitzing so much. Look at these early down blitzes. Go check the recent Vikings numbers. He's turning the throttle down a little bit. And it's just because, hey, we haven't needed it as much. Our corner play isn't as good. We have Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. Flores has, and I wonder how much of this is the Tua thing that happened when he was the head coach and how he left Miami, whatever. Flores has great, this, especially this season, humility, where he doesn't, it used to be flamethrower blind Flores, we are blitzing. And now it's I have a bunch of tools in the toolbox. I'm going to do what works this week. I think he is a cut above the other defensive coaches. I do.
It's so tricky for me.
The other thing is I've become a Sam believer. I think I'm in. Like that throw to Jefferson to beat the Seahawks. God, dude, I'm there.
One thing I think that could end up being the difference is the Vikings probably have the best run defense of the bunch. They're all decent, by the way. Packers are really improved in that regard, but I think running the football is so important in the playoffs right now that whatever team can actually stop that might have the edge. Okay, sorry, we're dwelling. All right, we're back to the AFC. I have got the Bills. I'm actually kind of annoyed because this is kind of similar to what you did for the Eagles. But I wrote also a lead to force defenses or opposing teams rather into obvious passing situations. I think the Bills are fantastic. I think this offense. So that's about the defense, and maybe that's the difference here between our Bills and our Eagles takes.
Yeah.
My feelings. I don't think Josh Allen, this offense needs a lead. I think this defense might need a lead against teams like Baltimore or any team that can run the football exceptionally well. That's where I get worried. The defense has been injured and they have been playing way above their pay grade in some respects at pay grade. And I think that they're incredibly well coached and I think the pass rush is good. I also think a team like Baltimore could just bully them. So my feeling is if they're able to get a lead, and of course this offense is capable of doing that, then I feel a lot better about this defense than I do if they're playing a team like Baltimore that can just grind them down.
Yeah, and I think that the defensive performance against the Patriots was not like super thrilling. And after the Rams game, after the Bills game, I think that it's easy to look at that box score and be like, see, this Bills defense, like, they gave 21 to the Patriots. It was close, like whatever. Kyrie Elam was in for that game, right? Rasul Douglas is out at corner. That's an extremely big deal. Just in terms of outside corner depth, the Bills are pretty lacking, and you saw the Patriots take advantage of that in that game. And so I do think there's a little bit of an asterisk to put on the most recent one in terms of the Bills defense. But the general rule is like, man, when they have played elite quarterbacks this year, defense is not where you'd like for it to be. It's not the pass rush is just not enough of an impact in terms of making the pocket muddy and accelerating reads. And then coverage wise, I like so many of their players. Like Benford has had a good season. I love Rasul Douglas. Taylor Rapp, I thought has had a good season. They are not particularly fast. They do not cover a ton of ground. They're going to give up explosives. Even the linebacking core, okay, they are fast, but then they're small, right? So then they can lose to size. And so Buffalo, I want to see a Bills Super Bowl so dearly. Very much rooting for the team. I've loved the Josh Allen season. Excellent. It's great. If they have to play 3 elite quarterbacks in a row, right? Like, I don't know whatever draw they end up getting, their seed in the wildcard season, but if they have to go like Herbert into Lamar into Mahomes, I just don't know if they can deal with those.
I think they'll find against the Chargers. I just don't think the Chargers don't have enough of a ground game. I hear you on the elite quarterbacks, but I think it's the combination of the elite quarterback and the ground game because
J.K. Dobbins coming back, baby. No, I agree.
Okay, NFC, back to you.
All right. I have the Los Angeles Rams for my next one because they're the current leader in the NFC West. Sorry. Last time I was on this pod, I said the Seahawks were going to go 2-0, and then they went 0-2 at home against the NFC North. That's my bad. For the Los Angeles Rams, under the Christmas tree, I have put dominant offensive line play. We have seen flashes of this with the return of Steve Avila and with the return of Kevin Dotson. We have had moments of this, and in their best games, thinking about that Bills game, you see a running game that, again, it is not a spectacular, high octane, some of the top running games we've had this season, but it does keep them ahead of the sticks. It does establish a play action pass. And you go and you watch that Jets game, Matthew Stafford throws for 115 yards or whatever it was. Like, the passing game never really gets off of the ground. And you're watching back the film, you go, okay, they just keep losing in the trenches, just at one spot. Just it's here, then it's there, and then it's a misread, and it's off the left side. You can tell that it's close for the offensive line. You can tell, okay, like if everybody's healthy, like there's the flashes, and no one will care what happened in the first 14, 15 weeks of the season. If we just return everybody to health and we go and we're dominant on the interior, we're moving downhill double teams the way we were last year. Like we can do this. It won't matter what happened in the regular season, but the clock is ticking. There are 2 regular season games left to really like round out our reads, round out our communication, and make sure those guys who are coming back from injury are actually fully back and have their sea legs under them. And so I fear this Rams team if and only if they can win in the offensive trenches. Because if not, like Stafford doesn't move enough. And he has to make all these high difficulty throws under pressure. And Nakua and Kupp, for as excellent as they are like, they're yak beasts in the sense that they turn 5-yard gains into 8-yard gains. But it's not like a Chiefs thing where I'm worried about the Xavier Worthy 2-yard shallow route becoming a 40-yard catch and run. And so like if I can beat the Rams in the trenches, I feel like I can cripple the whole operation. Rams need the offensive line to be able to deliver on the price tag they paid for it and the promises that they made if they're going to make a postseason run.
One thing I like for the Rams is just being in the NFC. there's really not elite pass rushers,
Mhm.
and to the same degree that there is in the AFC. I know I mentioned that with Tooney and the guys that he's faced. So I think from a matchup perspective, this could end up working in their favor because I completely agree with you. With Stafford this year, it really comes down to if he's protected, God have mercy on us all. If he's not, there's been some up and down performances. It's a big part of why I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure his splits on third down are pretty bad this year. And a lot of it has been due to pressure and offensive line play. So
and they just throw so many bucket shots on third down, right? It's so many like, all right, like, get leverage with the release and with everything, and then like, all right, like hopefully like, we got Kupp with enough of a window, Nakua with enough of a window. Kupp, man, like you can still set your watch to him, but it's a vintage watch at this point. Like it's just
vintage wash.
Yeah, I remember that Lions game that they had, right? Like Nakua was obviously like the primary producer, but Kupp still had himself like a pretty good game. But you watch that game back, that postseason game, you're like, oh man, Nakua's kind of coming for the throne a little bit. Yeah, the throne's been had in the Rams pass catching group.
All right, let's take a quick break. Come back and we'll hit the rest of the playoff teams then. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. All right, we're back. I will go first. I have the Houston Texans, the dreaded Texans.
2021 Deontay Johnson. That's what's under the tree.
Oh my gosh. I actually was tempted to get something out of Deontay Johnson. Just horrible news, obviously, with Tank Dell, especially because there's a million reasons why it's horrible. And Tank Dell, coming back from the injury, but it felt like he was kind of starting to click, and you really saw that in that game on Saturday before he got hurt, and just absolutely brutal. Hopefully he comes back healthy from that. I am just ignoring the offensive line because I think it's beyond hope. And I wrote CJ Stroud and Nico Collins reignite the fire. So it's still good.
Mm-hmm.
That connection is still obvious on certain plays. You saw it in this last game. Nico Collins is still amazing. There was a rep in this game. I think it might have been the touchdown actually, where or maybe it was not, but it was like a deep ball early on where Nico Collins he's lined up outside, wins incredible release, incredible route, incredible hands. And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, man, this guy
that was that third and long, that corner route, that flat right into the sideline where he caught outside of the frame. Yeah, that's vintage Nico.
I'm watching that. I'm thinking there's no reason why Nico Collins shouldn't be one of the 5 best receivers in the NFL, right? But, since coming back from injury, it's been a little bit up and down. And most of that obviously has to do with the pass protection and Stroud's general antsiness because of that, I believe. For me to have any faith in this Texans offense, which is obviously pretty low right now, or I think rather for defenses to be frightened of them, if those two Stroud and Collins, can kind of capture some of that play action pass in breaking brilliance, automatic third down that we saw last year, then you get a little bit worried about this Texans offense. Now, it's a lot easier for defenses because he's really the only player you have to worry about at this point. So it's a tall ask, but Ben, don't you just feel like unless that happens, this isn't going anywhere?
Yeah. You made the point, you said it so well. Nico Collins, there's no reason he shouldn't be a top 5 receiver, right? Just everything, height, weight, speed, route running, the trust, the hands, everything is there. And so when you have a player like that, you have to weaponize him. You have to, the agenda of so many plays, a big block on your play sheet has to be getting Nico Collins open, getting Nico Collins the football. And even before Tank Dell went down in that game, they wanted to get Nico moving, right? He had a real quiet game against the Dolphins the week previous. Got to get Nico reactivated. And what's Bobby Slowick doing? It's my wide receiver screens, right? I love throwing wide receiver screens to Nico. I do this all the time. Against the Chiefs, we're doing screens against the Chiefs. It took 3 of them before we buried it, right? I have such faith in Nico Collins' ability to be still a dominant wide receiver 1 force, despite the fact that his wide receiver 2 and 3 are absent. I have an equal amount of negative faith, of lack of belief, that Bobby Slowick is going to do what's necessary to open that guy up. Put him in motion. Throw him the ball behind the line of scrimmage with blockers already in front of him, not with Robert Woods in front of him. But let's get tunnel screens if you want to do it that way, right? Let's give the guy reverses. He runs a high 4.4s at 210 pounds. We can find ways to activate the dude. The Chiefs got to bracket him the entire second half for free. because there's no curiosity with the alignment. There's no, change-ups with the route tree. We have to be able to, all the eggs are in the Nico Collins basket. We got to invest in the basket a little bit.
Especially important on this Christmas matchup, by the way, because the Ravens, we talked about it. Marlon Humphrey's playing at an elite level in the slot. Mm-hmm. You need to get him away from Marlon Humphrey in this game. And because there's a lot of other cornerbacks on. I mean, he matches up well with, and look, the Ravens are probably going to give him safety help. That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. And they play a lot of split safety. And I would be not, if I'm Baltimore, I basically just encourage Houston to run the ball, which they don't. They play the run really aggressively. But Bobby Slowick, you have one job, dude, in this is find ways to get him touches.
And the Ravens will cloud the same way the Chiefs cloud, right? We're going to roll the outside corner up. We're going to bump. We're going to run. We're going to play a deep half safety on top. You saw it last week a lot for Nico. You had no solution. You're going to get it again. What do we get? What's in the bag, right? Like we criticize Bobby a lot, and he does a lot that's good. But if you're going to have your name put in head coaching circles, these are the moments when wide receiver 2 and 3 are down, when the offensive line is continuing to be shuffled, when the postseason is up close. These are the moments you got to win some games. You got to be able to get something out of your bag. So I Ravens Texans, I'm dialed in because this is a big moment for that coaching staff.
All right, NFC, back to you.
Yep. For the Atlanta Falcons, I have a nice jar of rookie polish, right? We always talk about rookies. You got to get a little bit of polish on that game. And with Michael Penix, postseason's in 3 weeks. We got to get veteran very fast. We have to very quickly get over all of the rookie bumps and leaps if we're going to make any sort of postseason run. When Kirk got benched and when Penix went in, I think there was a easily anticipatable improvement in the Falcons offense because of the addition by subtraction, right? Okay, we can just put rollouts back in the offense, right?
The very first play. It was a beautiful throw, by the way, that was dropped by Ray-Ray McCloud.
Which I feel like Zach Robinson was kind of like this was for everybody. This was for all of us, right? Like as a family, we're gonna call this rollout. But it's not even like, rollouts because Penix is fast. No, like this is an integral part of this Rams offense. They roll out with Jared Goff right back in the day. Like you don't need to be mobile for it. Just you have to have it as a change up to the outside zone. And so by Kirk stepping down and by reintroducing rollouts, by getting a little bit more velocity on the football, everything that was already working continued to work. And then just some of the natural change ups, some of the natural counters worked a little bit better. And so the bump, I think, was evident. With that said, Penix played well. That was a good debut. He is a rookie. If he just exclusively produces good games one after the other, he'll be the first rookie in history to do so, right? That is never how it works. And this isn't really going to be like sort of like a Jaden Daniels case where like Daniels and Cliff got the drop on the NFL the first 5 weeks, 6 weeks that they're doing a bunch of stuff nobody's really ready for. And then teams catch up a little bit and there's some schematic interplay. Like, no, everybody already knows what the Falcons' bread and honey is in terms of their passing game designs. And so, if every Penix mistake is going to be magnified the same way every Kirk Cousins mistake was magnified, right? If you're going to make a postseason run, you need Penix, who had a ton of experience at Indiana and Washington and came in very veteran. You need him to be like CJ Stroud level of mistake-free, talking about a rookie performing in the postseason. It's a very thin, very narrow ask, but hey, they're going to make the big dance, so we got to talk about what's going to happen.
I was really impressed by his debut, granted against the Giants defense, one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL and has had some injuries as well, but I just think you saw a lot of the things you wanted to see out of him. Obviously, the functional mobility, the ability to roll out is huge, but just the way the ball just jumped out of his hand on outbreakers is so different. And the ability to drive those, my God, such a difference from what we've seen in Atlanta. I mean, he made some pretty challenging throws in this game. And then I thought he saw the middle of the field well, Ben, which was, I think a question folks had about him coming out of UW. It wasn't like a huge part of that offense for him. And I thought he a couple moments went from 1 to 2 and hit, whether it was like Drake London on an inbreaker or Darnell Mooney. I was impressed by that.
11 for 11 for 103 yards throwing between the numbers. Penix was in that game. And the London targets, especially, like sometimes rookies don't yet know how to trust NFL receivers and NFL windows. And I thought Penix would be good at that just because of who he played with at Washington. But even then, like the windows were very open. Immediately, week 1, he's like, all right, where's Drake? You put it near him. You can make me right.
And that's the other thing I think that, to your point, we're going to have to see out of this Falcons offense is the other guys lifting him up by making plays, which you saw minus Kyle Pitts. But other than that, you saw that the other Falcons receivers made some difficult catches. Honestly, I was like, oh man, Kirk's got to be on the sideline. Like, But I thought it was an encouraging performance. He's going to have to, I mean, the Commanders who they face next are going to have a lot of success against their defense, I think. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on this Falcons offense. And at least at very minimum, I enjoy watching them now. So, okay.
Pitts is good. Pitts will be fine.
No, he's not. No, he's not. Stop. I'm out. Never been
old heads remember pre-knee injury Pitts. He was the GOAT.
Yeah, okay. AFC Steelers next for me. I have a kind of a weird Steelers take, which is I actually came out of that game feeling better about their offense against the
okay, you gotta walk me through that one.
The fact that they were able to move the ball without George Pickens on the Ravens, I found legitimately impressive. I thought that was quietly one of Russell Wilson's better games, even though he turned the ball over. But like he made some, I thought, genuinely impressive throws on the move in this one. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I wrote better in the red zone. This has just been problem with this team. It was a problem before Russell Wilson became the quarterback. It's maintained it's continued to be a problem since then. Near the bottom of the NFL in red zone efficacy. With an offense that is a little bit boomer bust, notwithstanding what I just said, you got to score when you get there. You have to be able to turn those possessions into points. You know, we know how the Steelers team is going to win in the playoffs. If they get there, it's going to be gross. It's going to be low scoring. The defense is going to take over, but you got to capitalize when you get to the red zone better than they have thus far.
Yeah. My entire line on the Steelers 2024 version has been, I didn't really believe in the postseason pushes of the Kenny Pickett ones and the Duck Hodges ones and the late career Ben Roethlisberger teams because the offense just did not have enough punch to them. This offense certainly has enough punch with George Pickens in. I think with Pickens out, I'm still highly questionable on the punch. I'm not convinced by the punch. I will give you Russ, especially throwing on the move, I think has been the biggest thing for me. Yeah. Like I think in Denver, you would see occasional plus throws on the move, but the book was like, okay, he just can't escape the way he used to escape, and he can't access downfield the way he used to off platform because of the age thing. And while he certainly is nowhere near prime Russ, he's better than he looked in his last year in Denver, and you need that in Russell
100%.
Wilson's game. You have to be able to make those throws in that scramble drill moment, and he's doing so. So yeah, I agree with you. The throw on the move has been the eye popping thing.
I'm really interested this week in how Steve Spagnuolo approaches him, by the way, because this Chiefs pass rush, they need to blitz to get pressure, right? This is, I mean, when they don't blitz, their pressure rates are near the bottom of the NFL. When they do blitz, they generate pressure at incredible rates, part because they're awesome at it and they're very clever about it. But Ben, that's the other thing about Russ this year, especially if Pickens is back. I feel like if I'm Russ, I want you to blitz. Am I like, because he's still like, he's obviously a veteran quarterback. He's seen a lot of different looks. He is willing to make those difficult throws. I bet, I'm just pulling it up out of curiosity, his numbers against the blitz are better than when he is, unblitzed. So he has a QBR of 81 when blitzed, which is 8th in the NFL. And this year when he is not blitzed, this is
the fastest number pull-up of all time. How do you have the stats? It takes me like 18 minutes to find my tab and get to the right quarterback. That was professional TV right there. Jeez.
I mean, don't you think, though, like the best way to get Russ is to play shell and send a 4-man rush and just get him impatient or probably get him to hold on to the football?
Yes, if you don't have the Chiefs 4-man rush, right? Because Chris Jones is questionable for this game. And so if you tell me the Chiefs are 4-man rushing with no Chris Jones, and it's like, I mean, Russ is going to have if you give Russ a 6-second time to throw, he'll take a 6-second time to throw, and then eventually coverage integrity breaks just late in the down. And so I like it on the chalkboard, right? Yeah, I don't want to give Russ air downfield. I need to have safeties on top for when George Pickens makes that spectacular catch. We can go get him down and make them do it again and again. But man, the Chiefs, I think left tackle gets the big headlines, and obviously like the Najee Johnson corner thing was bad, and they've kind of changed their corner rotation a little bit. But the thing I still coming back to is the lack of pass rush.
Okay. Who you got next? The
Minnesota Vikings, current 5 seed. You know how sometimes there's a very little present under the tree, and you're excited by that because it might maybe something like real nice and real expensive. Yeah, my little Ivan Pace Jr. under the tree. My little present, Ivan Pace Jr. That
so specific.
The 5'11" linebacker for the Vikings. I like my joke on it. But Ivan Pace Jr., who returned to practice this week, has been absent for the last 5 games, and that has made Josh Metellus the safety, linebacker, corner, they're Kyle Hamilton guy. He doesn't have the same height, weight, length sort of, freak athlete thing going on. But Metellus is their similar, just overhang, problem solve player there, and that weird spot on the defense
last week against Seattle.
Metellus has basically just been like, yeah, no, I'm a linebacker. Don't worry about it. And has been, which is preposterous. You shouldn't be able to do this, but he does. He's such a bright player. He's such an aggressive player. He's always the first to see things on that defense. It is with like Harrison Smith on there and with Andrew Van Ginkel, so like sharp players on there. Always the first one to like identify a play action, identify reverse misdirections. Always Metellus. It's so cool to watch. So anyway, he's been holding them together, right? Steve Rogers with the helicopter. He's been hanging on there at linebacker, but that makes you, I think, really liable in the defensive backfield, right? All of a sudden, you're living in a world where Harrison Smith has to play more in coverage and more isolated. Harrison Smith's a good player, not necessarily his strength right now in his 30s, right? You saw Bobby McCain get a lot more snaps. Theo Jackson get a lot more snaps already with like Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. We just have a lot of guys who aren't great in space in the secondary. And that's where you see the Vikings start to lose on some of these big plays when the rush doesn't get home. When Pace returns, Pace is their little case of TNT. He's a little detonator. They send him on blitzes constantly. And he's the guy who blows up the back, creates the chaos, doesn't pick up the stat sheet, but he ensures the one-on-one for the edge rusher. And he keeps all the guys you want in coverage. So he's a very like low key to this defense, and his absence has been felt in the last 5 weeks. So get Ivan Pace back, and I think you'll see this defense step back up to kind of the near elite levels they were at previously.
Yeah, I mean, just even listening to you list all of the players in the secondary and the various ways that they've compensated for that. I mean, Brian Flores, absolutely preposterous how good this defense is given some of the holes that they have and that they've had. And it's a really good point about Pace. Who's a great rusher. Yeah. All right.
Against Seattle, Blake Cashman took 100% of the snaps. They did not have a single other linebacker take any more snaps. Jamin Davis is kind of a question mark for them because he's an edge or whatever, but like Kamuka J. Hill, like Brian Asamoah, they didn't play these guys because they play with Metellus. They're very thin right now at linebacker. They need Pace back.
I got the Chargers. I'm going to give them something that a lot of people give on Christmas, which is gloves. But I'm putting stick 'em on them. Catch the freaking football. The Chargers have the second highest drop rate in the NFL behind the Green Bay Packers. You didn't need me to tell you that. All you have to do is watch a Chargers game.
Do you have the numbers on who? Like, what if it was a non-Quentin Johnson receivers? Where would they rank? That'd be what I'm curious of.
It's probably a lot less if you take out Quentin Johnson. So I didn't want to bully him and target him specifically. I don't know. There's been some pretty big drops from. Like, Palmer's had some draw. It's not just Quentin Johnson.
Had a drop. Lab with 2Ds had a drop. They had Jalen Reagor playing snaps for a while. That always elicits a big drop or two.
Random guys. Anyways, what we saw the last time this team played on Thursday night against Denver was a reminder that they have a Terminator at quarterback, and he has the ability to take over football games, even despite the fact that they're not that great running the ball. The offensive line, I think, actually has been playing better over the last few weeks, to be honest. But and they were decent against a very good Denver pass rush. All he just needs is someone to catch it. And I'm not saying Herbert's perfect, whatever. But if I'm putting together, in a world in which the Chargers win a playoff game, the passing game has to go crazy, I think. Especially as the defense has tailed off a little bit, down the stretch, gotten a little bit more water finds this level. They're still a good unit, but I think this passing game has to be what we saw. And that's the single biggest problem with the passing game. So.
Yeah. The defense, it's like, okay, they're probably not as good as they seem because like the players and everything, but still structurally, it's like it's sound. The theory works. Everybody understands what they're doing and how it's supposed to be achieved. And you see that in the Broncos game where they're losing a ton early because they're missing their tackles and the running game's going great. But once they stop the bleeding, right? Okay, we've got our couple stops. You're expecting the Sean Payton counterpunch. Okay, this is what they're going to do now. The Cortland Sutton moment, the Bo Nix moment. It just never comes. Once they kind of get around you and they understand how you're going after them, they have the blanket on top of you and they have the players to just make you inch your way down the field. And once you get that penalty, once you get that tackle for loss, they're home. So the theory is still sound, and that's going to work well against Josh Allen's and Patrick Mahomes is. It might not work so well against the Bills run game and the Ravens run game.
That's what I worry about with that defense is
but that's going to be present. Yeah. Against elite quarterbacks. Yeah. If not just for my sanity of dealing with takes off of a nationally televised postseason game, I would like for the Chargers receivers to catch the football, please. And thank you.
All right. What you got next?
Yeah. So I have the Packers, and mine's actually like honestly kind of similar. It's for Christmas, we need to have the right receivers in the right moments. When you watch Green Bay, there's always a moment where Jordan Love play action fake and he drops back and he bounces, he hitches, and then the ball goes high into the sky. And you're just wondering to yourself,
Who's there?
Okay, which one? Which one is it?
Who's
Right?
there and are they catching it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it Christian Watson? And if so, is there a defender even remotely near him? Because if so, he's probably going to drop it. Is it Romeo Doubs? And is there a defender remotely near him? Because if so, he's probably going to catch it. If it's the open ones that Doubs drops, is it Dontavian Wicks? Flip a coin. No one really knows. If it's Tucker Kraft, great. We're moving the ball down the field, right? Jaden Reed, great. We're completing it, right? The Packers have long been lauded, and we talked about this a lot in 23 when they first started to figure things out, have long been lauded for this pass catching group that is, jack of all trades, master of none. There's just so many guys who do things well. Nobody really demands top targets. Nobody needs to be the wide receiver one. You don't know who to take away. But the other side of that sword is that, in the fourth quarter, in a one-score game, in a playoff environment on the road, you like to have a guy who you know is your bucket. And right now, that's probably Jaden Reed still, but a lot of Reed's bucket targets are like 2 A-dot, right? And so if you're not necessarily, you might get an explosive because of yards after the catch, but it's hard to do all the way down the field. I would argue the most consistent guy for them this season has been Tucker Kraft. Again, is that, or do we want a high volume Tucker Kraft game in the postseason? So when you have this spread them and shred them approach, it's got its strengths. It's also got at times its worries. And a lot of the Packers' success in the passing game, not offensive success because their running game is so stinking good, but a lot of their success in the passing game, which might become critical in postseason time, is contingent on, does Christian Watson catch these 2 targets for 60 total yards? Does Romeo Doubs catch this one key third down up against the sideline? It can be a little bit fragile.
Watson exited Monday Night Football with a knee injury.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully by the time you listen to this, got a little more information on that. Didn't sound like super serious, but it's definitely something.
Yeah, he gets banged up a lot, so you got to be careful.
You're a little nervous about that. Yeah, I kind of think it's Dobbs, man. In terms of who's going to be the guy on third when Jordan Love is driving and maybe they're down or they just need to keep the other team off the field and it's 3rd and 6. I think it's Dobbs. And everybody has a different function. Everybody has different skills of the receiver groups. And I don't think Dobbs is the most explosive, certainly not the most explosive of them. He's not the guy who I think is going to get you explosives. But I don't know if this offense needs explosives. I think they need a guy on third down when Jordan Love's blitzed. Who's your answer? Who's your slant at the goal line?
And if you look, if you look at it like a target per route basis, especially when you get man coverage, you expect Romeo Doubs to be the target over the course of Love's career. Obviously, a lot of those games are without Watson, and with Watson, the numbers get a little bit muddy because he does like him against man coverage too. I think of the Packers matching against the Eagles, and I'm in a world where all right, let's say Vic is playing a lot of quarters that becomes man coverage, the match becomes man coverage, straight man coverage, and you have Quinion Mitchell against Christian Watson, you have Darius Slay against Romeo Doubs, and you have Cooper DeJean against Jaden Reed. I don't feel great about any one of those Packers receivers winning for 4 quarters. Yes, on 4 quarters it's a bit of a question mark, and that's where I like my postseason teams with a dude in the pass catching group who I just have no answer to. I think that over the course of the last 5 years of football, you've really seen that's a reliable thing, and that's not Green Bay.
It's the do you need a wide receiver one question?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see that play out in the playoffs because it's just not their identity, and their identity works for them so well, but it is if you're going up against a team there are certain teams where I think a wide receiver one playing them matters more than others. I am not so sure that that's the case in the NFC though. I think we'll see.
Yeah, I look back at their Vikings game in one they lost week 4, week 5, I think it was. Dontavian Wicks had 13 targets, right? That's the end of it, in this big trailing script, and then all of a sudden it's a Wicks game. That's the thing that's weird to me.
They're still figuring it out. Okay, Broncos. This is my last AFC team, and then you'll have to just kind of bang through those 3 NFC.
I got 4 left.
You got 1, 2, 3 left, right?
Yeah. Bucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wrote consistency running the football because the formula, I think, for this Denver, defense, I'm not going to do anything. Offensively, when they are their best, I believe, is when the run game is working. You could play action off of it. Sean Payton likes to put Bo Nix on the move. But the run game has been all over the place this year. I think they're probably bottom 10 in DVOA. I don't have it in front of me. But it's just been but there have been games, Ben, where it has looked a lot better. And I have had difficulty understanding why they're using certain backs in certain moments and who's getting the touches, to be honest, in this offense. Against the Chargers, who admittedly I think have a pretty bad run defense, or one that's trending downward. They put up their best rushing performance of the season in EPA per play. Got a lot of Audric Estime in that one. So my gift to them would be like build off of that. If Estime is your guy moving forward, if you can run the ball the way you did, and I know they lost in the Chargers game, I feel a lot better about this team with a rookie quarterback in the postseason.
Yeah, the backfield in Denver is a mystery shrouded to man and to machine. Like there's just no way to pierce that fog and understand, okay, who do we want to do what when? It is, which like committee is cool, but again, you want to have a guy that's a little bit of a ringer for you when you get to these late games. And especially because if you're gonna have run it in all caps at the top of your play sheet, it'd be nice to get a guy into a rhythm. It'd be nice to get a back who, 10, if you talk to running backs, and maybe this is not real in the data, but it's real experience for the players, get those 10 carries, those 12 carries, start to hit some guys, start to rip off that first explosive. You start to feel the tempo of things. And they don't really allow for that given kind of how much they're pass happy with some of the behind the line of scrimmage stuff, but then also because of the way they rotate those backs. And so, yeah, I would feel, I like this Broncos run game by design, but when you go and you look at the efficiency, the backs are a problem. It'd be great if by January I was like, oh no, they're going to give Audric Estime 14 carries in this game and he's going to deliver for them. But they had an opportunity to like make sure they knew that, and they haven't given it to him yet.
All right, NFC. You got the Commanders, and then you got two more sort of teams who are competing for playoff spots. So you want to do Commanders first?
Yes. For the Washington Commanders, I would like a blueprint at cornerback, right? I want to open an envelope and see this is the plan for who should play where and how well they should play. We talked about this at the time of the Marshawn Lattimore trade. Okay, Mikey Sainer still's been playing on the outside. Maybe we move him into the slot. Noah Igbinogheni's been decent in the slot. Do you want to keep him there? Benjamin St. Juste is a player who gets picked on, but he's kind of had a better year. Okay, they've added Marshawn Lattimore. You get this Marshawn Lattimore game against the Eagles, and man, I don't love that. Lattimore's always been a grabby player, and AJ Brown's a very physical wide receiver, and so maybe
tough
this
matchup.
is just
Tough
styles
matchup.
makes fights, absolutely, and like won't always look this way. But if Lattimore was the all-in push of the chips, we have this great young rookie quarterback. Let's start getting ready for postseason runs. So far, the return on investment is concerning. Now he's coming off a hamstring injury, like he's moving to a new defense. There's a lot of reason to give him a lot of latitude, but I'm very worried that we're going to walk into that Washington playoff game, whoever it is that they get, right? They're going to get the 2-seed Eagles, right? Even like the 3-seed Rams were so good throwing the football. 3-seed Seahawks, they win the division. You have DK Metcalf and JSN, and they're just going to look at this corner room and go, oh, okay, we know exactly who we want to go out and how we want to get at them. And you can't pull that all the way through the postseason. So much like the Broncos need to figure out the running back plan, Commanders need to figure out the cornerback plan. Yeah,
I'm really trying not to panic too much on Lattimore, given it's one game injury, AJ Brown, but this is a good test this week coming up against the Atlanta Falcons, because we talked about that passing game. Michael Penix Jr. is activating more parts of the field, whether it's Darnell Mooney or Drake London lined up outside. It's a challenging matchup, both big guys who are pretty fast. So I would feel a lot better, I agree, if he doesn't need to be, 2018 Marshawn Lattimore or whatever, but if he can just give you competent corner play, I would feel much better about this defense.
For the Buccaneers, I mean, like, defensive regression / luck to the moon. This Bucs defense, man, like there's so much air in the secondary. You would think they hadn't played zone coverage before, and they've done it all season. And Antoine Winfield is out again. And if you go and you look at the Antoine Winfield on-off splits, it's pretty clear how big of an impact he has. On-off splits can always be messy, I understand. But still, like, you don't want to take too much away from a game where Winfield didn't play, but it was Cooper Rush in the Cowboys passing game. CeeDee Lamb got hurt in this game. The CeeDee Lamb-less Cooper Rush Cowboys should be the easiest pass defense team you've got. And Ryan Flournoy is finding room between zones, right? Like, they're so blitz-oriented, and they are so load-the-box oriented, and they put a lot in that defensive backfield. And when they can heat up the pocket and they can consistently win in the trenches, they can take enough away that it looks good and it works. You can see the vision for Todd Bowles, but it is so hot and cold. It's so inconsistent. And they have the Falcons this upcoming week. Kirk put 500 on them because there's so much space in the intermediate level against this team. Now it's Penix, but I promise you, Zach Robinson still knows the score, right? Drake London still knows. They remember what this matchup was like.
Wait,
so
they're playing.
Oh, the Bucs have for the Falcons in 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
They already played.
They already played, twice. Kirk killed them twice. You remember? Yes,
the Commanders.
They put the Panthers.
Yes,
so who was advertised as like, oh, it's so easy. They're finishing with the Panthers.
Yeah. It's the Commanders who have the Falcons this week. I conflated my late NFC teams, right? So this Bucs secondary, right? If Bryce Young puts it on you,
The pass defense is awful. Guys are just wide open all the time. I'm sure you can do metrics on that, although it's a little bit noisy with openness, but they're very, very open. I have one other little thing for the Bucs before you finish with the Seahawks. A little stocking stuffer, if you will. Todd Bowles. Coach the team like you know your defense sucks. That is all I know.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it sounds dumb, but the offense is significantly better than the defense. I know they're coming off of a dud performance against Dallas. Dallas quietly, defense is a lot better now, though. If this team makes it to the playoffs, they will not win a playoff game if Todd Bowles plays it super conservatively. He has to recognize that I know he's a defensive coach. He knows his defense is in it. Yeah. He's not, and he knows that. So call the game aggressively. Keep your offense on the field. Do whatever it takes to keep your offense on the field.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of Buccaneers fans in your mention saying they should fire Bowles to promote Cohen?
I have seen that floating around.
I want so badly for Liam Cohen to get hired somewhere else so that Bowles can hire another OC. Just see how Bucs fans deal with it because they are very pod committed. I feel like to this future. Interesting spot for the Bucs.
Okay, Seahawks, last one.
Yeah, what do you want for Christmas? Out of this,
Kyler Murray to go crazy this weekend.
Right, after make the Week 18 game. Oh yeah, I did. I said a Packers win for the Lions. I should have given a Cardinals win as well. The Seahawks would have been appropriate. Yeah. Now, I put the Hallmark movie, little Christmas reunion. Found the love of my life. I haven't seen them in 20 years. High school sweetheart, whatever. That for DK Metcalf and Geno Smith. All right, we had DK and Geno. It was all that we're funneling him targets, or we're always giving him an option one-on-one against man coverage, or throwing him these jump balls. He's rewarding it. He's scoring touchdowns for us. He went down with injury, and the new apple of Geno's eye, Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? He started to be the high volume player, and since then, man, I mean, firstly, DK hasn't gotten activated the way, right? They're having trouble figuring out the target share.
Yeah.
But also, we had that Niners miscommunication into an interception in the fourth quarter, and now we have this Vikings miscommunication into an interception in the fourth quarter. And you can tell Geno is frustrated with DK. If they're going to make any sort of noise, they need to be able to present that danger of we have Geno, we have DK, we have Smith and Jigba, and we can put 35 on you. And right now, I'm not scared of that.
You know what else would have been great on that final play where Geno was intercepted driving for the comeback? DK Metcalf, didn't break out in time. If a 3-man rush didn't plaster my man immediately.
What did you want me? What was I supposed to give them for a guard? Like, there's no one left.
There's
so
nothing.
Deep into the offensive line depth chart at this point.
Accountability for the front office for putting forward yet another train wreck.
This is not very in the holiday spirit of you. You're incredible.
I'm tired. I'm tired. What is it like watching offensive line? What does it even feel like? I don't even remember what it feels like anymore.
Mekhi Becton blew a block that pressured Kenny Pickett on the last drive. All right, it was very concerning to see.
Go straight to jail. Go straight to jail.
I love you, Jeff Stoutland.
Yeah. All right. That's it for the 2024 year. That's it for 2020. I almost said season, but that's obviously not it for the season. We will be back. I'll be back next week to recap, to do a Tuesday pod. Ben, I know I just gave you a hard time, and it's hard to be nice to you while you're wearing that hat, but thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. And as always, you have been invaluable this season. You guys should check out Ben. I don't know why I'm doing it like the season's over. Season's not over, but it's like,
are you going to push Netflix? Are you allowed to push Netflix? I should have asked that first, probably.
I am allowed to push anything. Maybe not.
Everybody watch Mina do shows. Talk about football.
And tomorrow on Christmas morning, you guys can check me out on a studio show previewing the games we kind of touched on. They're going to be great games. I'm really excited about them. There's also going to be Beyonce's going to be there, so you should watch with your family. I can't wait.
Like Lamar Jackson will be doing from the sideline. Did you see him say he's refusing to go to the locker room?
Great take. Good take. I know. I'm just so excited for millions of Americans to be upset for the 30 seconds that we are talking before Beyonce goes on.
Why is the studio desk? Yeah.
But yeah, this has been a great year, and thank you so much to everybody who listens, and thank you to the incredible folks at Omaha Productions who work on the show: Kirsten Sebecki, Anthony Jimenez, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Tashjian. You guys can check this show out on YouTube at youtube.com/@Mina Kimes. If you want to see Ben's hat, I strongly encourage you to head on over there and Otherwise, yeah, I'll be back next week as we head into the final stretch. Looks like I'm podcasting with Santa right now. And he's smiling. He's thinking about his offensive line, I guess.